Constructing your life is about much more than just building a bank account. Each week, join real estate entrepreneur and mindset coach Austin Linney as he interviews guests who are constructing their dream lives and impacting the world around them on a daily basis. If you're an entrepreneur or wanting to start a business, or you just want to hear motivating stories of how others have overcome the odds, you are in the right place. And now for your host, Austin Linney.
All right, guys, welcome to Construct Your Life. This is Austin Linney. We have the honor of having Micheal Sjorgen here, a good buddy of mine. We've been in the trenches in the Airbnb space, short-term rental space for quite a while. He's got quite an operation going and a wonderful group, but he didn't start out that way. This lovely man, for some reason, I don't understand why, decided that numbers were going to be a good play, and he was a CPA for a while. So happy to have you here, Mike.
Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. You
got it, man. So I'll let you start where you want to start. I know your story a little bit, and there's a lot of powerful, just insight and so much determination behind the story. So I'll let you start where you want to go, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, for sure. So I guess going back to like where the advice that most of us get, right? It's go to school, get good grades, get a good job, put 10% in a 401k. And that's kind of like the American dream or whatever. Like that's just what you're supposed to do. So I did that, got the good grades, got the quote unquote good job as the accountant and whatever. And, from the outside looking in, everything was going good. Like had a good salary, amazing wife, the house, couple cars, like, standard suburban life or whatever. And then when our son was born, he was born with a rare lung disease, which basically anytime he fell asleep, he had to be on oxygen. He had to be monitored all the time. And it was really, really crazy time. And we spent a ton of time at one of the big hospitals in Boston. And I'll never forget, at one point we had been there for about 3 weeks straight. And all the doctors are in there telling us about all these tests I got to do. And kind of embarrassed to admit it, but as they're running through all the stuff that they're talking about, the only thing I can think about is I've got no more vacation time. I've got no more sick time. And I've got this mountain of hospital bills piling up. And I'm going to have to leave my wife and my son in here to go back to a cubicle to trade time for money. And I was just so pissed at myself for putting myself in that situation, put my family in that situation. And I told my wife that day, I said, I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I'm going to find a way to build a business that creates the income that we want, that doesn't rely on us to trade time for money. And that kind of led me down the path of real estate, short-term rentals. And within a year and a half of that date, I was able to retire myself, my wife, and my mom through short-term rentals. And that's basically the backstory, man. Selfishly, that's why I got into it.
No, and holy shit. I mean, it's so great because, what I tell all my young clients or young investors that I coach is that you need to do the work now, meaning in your 20s when you have time, so you can be the father and the husband that you want to later on in life. And when you put it in that context, it changes the whole scenario on why you invest and why you do that. So, you have a hotel now, you have a business, but that didn't start out that way, obviously. So when you made that decision and you told your wife, what was the next steps or what were you searching for and how did you land where you are now?
So the next step, I had been reading real estate books. Like I always knew I wanted to be a real estate investor from probably the time I was, 25, 26, from the time I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And I was like, from a numbers standpoint, like this makes sense. Like I get it. Like it's logical. And so I started, I hired coaches and things like that. And I was going down the path of like multifamilies and syndications. And I gave that a whirl for, a while. Like even before my son got sick, like I was kind of dabbling in that space and I was doing out the math and I'm like, all right, if I need to replace, at the time, like a 6-figure income and all these different things, like I'm going to need a lot of freaking apartments to do this, based on, an average apartment might cash flow 100 to 300 a door. That's the national average. So, you multiply that to replace, a good salary. And it was overwhelming. And I was putting in offers and trying to raise money all while working a full-time job, all while trying to take care of my son in the hospital and all these things. And I wasn't gaining traction. And then I met a gentleman in a mastermind that you and I are part of. And he was explaining to me how he was, generating anywhere from $1,000 to $2,000 a month with short-term rentals on properties that he didn't even own. And I was like, this sounds like a late night infomercial. Like, show me the numbers, man. This sounds like BS. And, he showed me the numbers and I was like, oh, okay, this makes sense. And so I wasn't necessarily sold on what he was doing, which was essentially like leasing somebody's property, then furnishing it and then renting it out and making the spread. I was like, I don't know. There's still a lot of cash involved and it just didn't really make sense. But I was sold on the concept of short-term rentals. Let's put it that way. So I told my wife about it. And, around that time, my son was starting to get a little bit better. And quite frankly, we just needed like a vacation because we were so exhausted from the past like year and a half of just endless. I didn't sleep for like a year and a half, like legit. And so we found this 2-bedroom condo up in the mountains in New Hampshire. Amazing place, like gorgeous mountain views in like the ski town that we like to go to in the winter. And it was reasonably priced. And I said, if I pulled a loan out of my 401k, because again, I did what they told me to do. I had a little bit of cash in a 401k. If I could borrow against the 401k, I think I got enough for a down payment and some furnishings and stuff. So we did that. We pulled out, I think it was somewhere around $60K between my wife and I's 401ks for a down payment, reno, and furnishings on this place. And we said, we're going to do this, but we're going to promise ourselves that every single month we're going to use this as a family no matter what. Like, that's the bottom line. And so we did that. And just like this guy told me, that thing, we've had it for 3 years now, and it's consistently generated about $1,500 a month net, like after all expenses, mortgages, cleaning fees, supplies, everything. And we use it every month. And I was like, this is the sickest real estate investing model ever. Like, I'm sold, but I can't live off of $1,500 a month and I don't have any more cash. So I started thinking about, how can I scale this? How can I grow this without any money? And so I thought about it and I said, well, what if I found landlords that were trying to rent out their properties on a 12-month lease? And I just showed them what I was doing with this short-term rental and see if maybe they'd be interested in doing like a partnership deal. And long story short, I ended up, took me a lot of different pitches to try and refine it and figure out what their pain points were. But long story short, I got somebody to say, yeah, I'll do that. And basically I said, okay, if you pay to furnish it, I'll design it, I'll build it out, I'll do all the work, I'll run everything for you. But if I could take you from making $1,400 a month to $2,000 a month, is that something you'd be interested in? And they said, yeah. So we basically did a 75-25 split. So they made 75% of the money. I made 25. And over the course of a year, he made an extra $10,000 on that property. So we got all of his furnishing costs back within year one. Plus now he's making nearly double what he was making before. And so that started snowballing very quickly because I got results for this gentleman who then knew other people. And he just started introducing me to all of his buddies that were into real estate. And, from the time that I got that first like co-host deal, we were up to 15 units in another 9 months. And then my wife and I were out of our jobs. And then within a couple months of that, one of the investors that I worked with, one of the landlords that I worked with happened to be a developer, and he found this boutique hotel about 30 minutes north of Boston. And he brought it to me and he was like, hey, would something like this work with your model too? And I said, well, let's go check it out. We went and looked at it. And I said, yeah, absolutely. Like the way that we use our locks and our systems and everything, this would work in like this boutique hotel setting. But I said, I'll do it, but I don't want to do what we were doing before for like a management fee. I said, I want ownership in this thing. And so we talked it over with his business partner and they said, all right, done deal. You run it, we'll fund it, and we'll split it, a third across the board. So 33% for each of us. And I said, all right, cool, done deal. And we closed on that in February. COVID hit in March and everybody's like, oh my God, I can't believe you bought a hotel. And I was like, if you understand human psychology, like don't worry about me. I'll be fine. And long story short, we finished renovating that in late May, opened up mid-June once the state opened up. And we've been in July and August, we were over 90% occupied. And that thing is pumping out cash flow like a beast. Mm-hmm. So,
and you tell the story super easy. I've been in the Airbnb space. It's not all roses, obviously, and you're learning. But something that I've always loved about you, and you said it there in the end with the hotel, is like, you're not saying it's going to be easy. That's not what you're saying to anybody. But what you're saying is that no matter what comes at me, I'm going to figure it out. And I think that's if you have that mentality, you can get anywhere you go. Because look, what people don't understand is that the Airbnb space, regardless of the name Airbnb, has been going on for hundreds of years on Florida beaches. So regardless of what the company or what the dude of the CEO of Airbnb wants to do, this is not anything that's going to go away ever. So when you're building up and you're scaling, I guess that's the number one question. I think people scale too fast. I think people don't understand the gravity of the work. You know, when you were still working your job and you're still doing the Airbnbs, like it was hard, right? I mean, it wasn't easy.
Well, I think the differentiating factor for me was I was so ruthlessly focused on creating systems, because the whole point of me starting this was to not trade time for money. Mm-hmm. So yes, I can make a ton of money on Airbnb, but if I'm giving myself another job, that defeats the whole purpose. So from like day one, I had that New Hampshire property for 9 months before I took another one on. Mm-hmm. And that was 3 hours away from where I lived. And I said, I want to have this thing dialed in, so I'm spending no more than 2 hours a week on it, period. Mm-hmm. And once I got that dialed in, that's when I started looking to scale it from there. And obviously I'm constantly tweaking and refining and like updating systems and adding team members. But I got it to the point while working a full-time job, plus another side business, plus having my, dealing with some residual health issues with my son, like it was 2 hours a week. And people often look at me and say, you're full of crap. And I'm like, well, you don't know my system then, because I got a really good system, right? And you and I have talked offline about it. And it's just when you're focused on building a machine, which is what the analogy I always like to use, like I'm always building and refining this machine so that it will continue to operate and grow and scale without me. Mm-hmm. So there's certain levels, like I would say up to like 6 units, like you don't need anybody else on your team. Like if you have the right technology and the right softwares and all these different things, you can automate 95% of the business. Once you get to that point, then it's time to say, okay, I need a part-time virtual assistant, which you can get for $300 to $400 a month. They work for you for 4 to 5 hours a day, Monday to Friday. And they take a lot of like the administrative and some of the guest communication stuff off your plate. Then when you go beyond that, okay, cool, move them to full-time and then maybe get one more part-time. And now, we've just continued to go up and refine and add a couple team members. But, now I've got an in-person manager at the hotel who also does some short-term rental stuff for me. I've got a weekend supervisor at the hotel, just some contractors to do like parking lots and things like that. But for the short-term rentals, I have one VA that handles pretty much everything, just leveraging the systems that we have. Mm-hmm. Right. And then it's just local cleaners, local contractors, handymen. And again, like the first one was 3 hours away from where I live. Now we've got a portfolio all up and down the East Coast from New Hampshire, Massachusetts, North Carolina, and Florida. So I physically can't be there. So I needed to create systems and teams that could do it for me regardless. Like even if I wanted to, I couldn't.
Yeah. And I think what I like about you, and you'll say it on calls, you even said it when I did your podcast, is like, there's parts about your personality that doesn't work for this business. Thank God for your wife.
100%. I know my strengths and my weaknesses. Like I'm great with systems and business and finance, but like when people complain or whatever, it's like that goes right to my team because they're way better with people than I am. Mm-hmm. Or I'm just like, I don't have the patience for it, but I know that about myself. And you don't have to master everything. You just need to put the right components in place. And yeah, every once in a while you suck it up, take it on the chin. Like, one of my sayings is never let your ego get in the way of your wallet. So every once in a while you're just like, that was annoying. But at the end of the day, like my life now compared to what it was a year ago, like not even close, man. Like,
yeah.
It's
funny. It's funny because, I follow your Instagram and I see you at the place you're talking about up in the mountains, and like, your son's healthy now and he's happy and he gets to spend time with mom and dad. He's walking properties. I love it. I can get him started early, but it's funny. And I don't know if I've ever asked you this, right? And you're not where obviously you have big dreams and you want to keep growing. But when you look back in the short amount of time from where you were to where you are here, it's gotta be an amazing feeling. And it's a lot of hard work. There's a lot of sacrifice from you and your wife but I would imagine that if you're sitting down with yourself, you're thinking, holy shit, like we're doing it, right? That's got to be an amazing feeling.
Yeah. And I mean, maybe it sounds like I'm bragging, but I'm friggin' proud of myself, man. Like I back in 2014, I wrote down like I wanted to become a full-time real estate investor. And it took me years to get to the point where I finally, and this is just general advice that I give to my students, is it was always a nice to have, but until it became a must, that's when it took off. Like when I had that day in the hospital and I said, I will figure this thing out or die trying, that's when it took off. Because the problem that most people have, especially that want to get going in real estate investing, they tend to have a stable corporate job or some type of other income that's paying the bills. So like they're comfortable, and your comfort will kill you. It will kill your dreams, like straight up, because it's terrifying and it's scary to push past that and go for it. Like I'll never forget that literally I was planning on quitting my job first, and then basically like my wife's company wanted her to start traveling and stuff again. And I was just like, you're done. Like, just tell them that you're done. So she quit first. And then I was like, all right, now I really need to level this thing up and make even more income before I could quit. Well, it only took me two months from that day to put in my resignation. And I had a coach, kind of pushing me a little bit to be like, what's your number? Like, what's your number? When are you going to do it? Because you'll find that even when you get to that point, like when you could do it, you'll second guess yourself. Mm-hmm. And then one day I literally got up in the morning, I was doing my routine, and I finished up this meditation, and I just heard this voice. It was like, today's the day. Like, today's your day, literally. And I called my boss on the way in, and I didn't even tell my wife yet. I just knew. I was like, this is it. And so I called him and I told him, and this was in like early to mid-November. And I said, listen, I'm like, I've been doing this real estate thing on the side for a while. And basically like I'm at the point where, I've replaced my income and I'm done. I said, I'm happy to work through the end of the year, help you transition, help find a new manager, train them up, transition everything over. But I'm done January 1st. And I was nervous as hell because he could have canned me right there. And I was like, but I just knew in my heart it was the right thing to do. And, it worked out. But that moment was amazing and terrifying all at the same time.
I found that people, and I'm not speaking for your boss, but if you speak from the heart and it's your truths, they see it in your eyes or hear it in your voice, and they have no choice but to. Now, if they're just a piece of, whatever, that's on them. But I find that we hide a lot of back of what we want. Like, I know I did it for years on like, no, I'm going to live. Like, people don't understand. Like, you've met me. You haven't met me in person, but you've met me. I was like top 1% of like bartenders and waiters. Like, and that's hard to do in a country of a lot of them. Like, I was the shit. Like, it's not a joke. Like, I was good. But you're not being challenged because it's so easy. And I lived in that comfort for so long when all I really wanted to do was be a real estate investor or a coach or anything like that. And we as people deny ourselves our truths. And if there's ever a time, meaning these last 4 months and moving forward, this is the great awakening for everybody and understanding that the world is shifting. And if there's ever an opportunity to take the leap, now is the time.
Yeah. And the interesting thing that he said to me, and I'll never forget it. And he goes, well, thank you for letting me know. He goes, I want you to know that I'm proud of you. And I wish I had the balls to do that myself. And so many people are in that place where they just wish that they could do it. And the truth is you just have to want it bad enough. And you have to be okay with like, yes, I was doing it a couple hours a week, but that was on top of a 50 to 60 hour work week, plus a side hustle, plus a sick kid, plus trying to be a good husband. So yeah, I was working a lot initially to get this thing rolling, but now I'm seeing the dividends, right? Now I do whatever the hell I want, right? I've become disciplined that I have routines, like doing some bookkeeping today. That's not the sexiest thing, but it's part of the deal. I'll suck it up and do that. But now, I just went upstairs, had lunch with my son, played with him for a few minutes, came down. Now I get to do this. I'll do some other stuff. Then maybe we'll go outside, play some cornhole, and it's a Wednesday and I get to do whatever the hell I want.
And so let's stick here for a minute and then we'll switch into mindset and personal development, which is really all me and you really care about. But But for anybody that's listening, let's say new Airbnb guy, they've been thinking about it, they don't. Give me 3 to 5 initial starting points for an investor. If in what guys, what we're trying to get across to you, and I said this on Mike's podcast, it doesn't need to be 20 properties. It doesn't even need to be a hotel. It could be 4 properties and you could be done. So why don't you?
I had enough to replace my income at like 8 or 9, and I was making a good income, right? Like it doesn't take a lot, and that's the beauty of this business. And I would say the first thing is to get clear on what you want. Just like Austin said, like a lot of people, I go to a lot of these conferences and they're like, I want 100 units. I want 500 units. And I'm like, okay, cool. Like you could do it, but why? Like why? What does that do for you? Mm-hmm. You know, for me, it was more about, I wanted to be able to teach financial education. That's what I was passionate about. And that's what I get to do now. So I wanted to get to the point where I'm continuing to build my cash flow and wealth with real estate, but I have no desire to go to 500 units. Like I don't, I'll tell you straight up, like, it's just not what I'm going for. Like it's not, and that's okay. And if you wanted, like I have some students, they just wanted one property in Disney that would pay for itself. Amazing. That's awesome. Cool. Like, do you, like, don't feel like you have to quit your job or you have to have 20 units or whatever. It's one, just define, just be you. Like, what do you want? And screw what everybody else says. It doesn't matter. It's your life. Mm-hmm. So that's the first thing. Then the second thing is it's in this book, right? Think and Grow Rich. Like, get the specialized knowledge. Like, you can go out and try and figure it out on your own. I'll tell you personally, I bought every Airbnb course I could get my hands on. And I found mentors and friends and just people that were already doing it. And I'm like, all right, how are you doing it? How are you doing it? How are you doing it? And I was like a sponge. I just absorbed it and just continue to learn and find somebody that is at or above the level that you want to get to and just do what they tell you to do. Mm-hmm. Like, that's it. Like, now I have my own system that works for me. So that's what I know. But initially I had no clue what I was doing. So I went and found people that were doing it and I got bits and pieces from all of them. Mm-hmm. So get some education, get some accountability. So third is get some accountability, because there's going to be days whether you're tired or shit comes up or you just don't feel like doing it, that you need somebody to grab your hand and be like, dude, I love you, or lady, I love you. And I know what you're going after and I won't let you off the hook, from a place of love, because I know that this is what you want. So let's get to work and let's do it. Mm-hmm. And I've had a group of 5 people that, you know, we get on weekly calls for the last few years that, like, they know what I'm going towards and they hold me accountable to do it. Mm-hmm. Like, those are some key things. So know what you want, get the accountability around it, go out and get some specialized knowledge. And then I would say the last thing is just take action. Like, I was in a state of always analyzing deals and always consuming education and reading all these articles, but I wasn't going out and putting in offers and negotiating with landlords and actually doing the work, because I was introverted. And I can still be very introverted and I work on that constantly. But, like, if you don't put yourself out there, it's not just going to happen via osmosis. You have to go out. And I told Austin this, like, when I was trying to get my first deal, my first co-host deal, I was doing everything from, like, reaching out to people on Craigslist. I was hosting my own meetup. And there were literally a couple months where nobody showed up to my meetup. Not a single person came to that meetup. And I was like, cool, I'm going to keep doing it until people come. Like, period. Because I am all in. Like, I burned the boats, man. Like, this is it. Mm-hmm. And when you just have that mental shift that I will do this no matter what, and you have the faith, it will happen. Like, it's a law. It will happen.
And more importantly, that was all amazing. But more importantly, it's not going to show up the way that you think it is either.
Yeah, exactly. That's it.
Yeah. So that's a perfect segue when you talk about mindset and switch. And it's something that me and you, I know that in our core working out, personal development stuff, is super important to us. So is this something that you've always believed in, or was this when you joined the mastermind the first time? How did this get incorporated in your life with personal development, mindset training? Because I truly believe that's one of the skills that separates you from other Airbnb operators, is that it might not be easy, but you're always going to push through.
100%. And I think reading Rich Dad Poor Dad when I was like 25, that was like my first taste of like, the world isn't the way it is, like they tell us in school, right? And I was like, like what else is out there, right? And I started going a little deeper, and then I got into M1, right? Probably 5 years ago, and that changed everything for me. I mean, I was just doing some refinancing paperwork for the hotel, and I had to submit personal financials, and I was like, damn, dude, I've 5x'd my net worth in the last like 4 years, just from when I started personal development and kept it going. Mm-hmm. Like that's it. Like that fuels everything, to your point. Mm-hmm. And so like when I got in there, I initially got in because I wanted to make more money, like selfishly, like that's why I joined. Right. But as you know, like this mastermind is becoming a whole life millionaire, which means yes, wealth, but it's also your health. It's your relationships, your contribution, like your adventure, your bucket list adventures, like having fun in your life. Like if you don't have a balance of all that and you're just chasing money, or you're just chasing fun, or you're just chasing relationships, like you're not going to feel fulfilled. You're not going to have the whole thing. And since joining that, like, I've ran a half marathon, a full marathon. I was training for an Ironman, and that didn't happen this year, unfortunately. I know you still went out and did it yourself like an animal. But just those, I never would have done those things if I didn't start getting around other people that were just looking for more.
Well, it's funny. They asked me on the interview, Lucas Piper asked me, why do you want to join M1? And I said, because my dreams are bigger than the people around me. And he was like, boom, done. He's like, that's it.
You're in.
Yeah. And it was one of those things where here's the truth. And I don't know if I've ever told anybody this. It was the first time in my life in 15 years I felt uncomfortable. Like I was like, oh my God, there's dudes like moving weight, like big deals, like wholesaling, tons of Airbnbs. And at first that initial uncomfortableness is awkward, but then you realize, oh, this is awesome. Like because water is going to find its level. And like I had 3 Airbnbs and they were killing me when I joined M1, like killing me. I was working 2 full-time jobs, and I met 2 people. And they were like, wait, you're not automating? You don't have keyless locks? Like, and it was like, boom, boom, boom. I did those things, and like, boom. I was like, oh, I could have 10 more. And so you really have to ask yourself, like, who are you surrounding yourself with? Because these people are who are going to drive you. And I know you have conversations probably to this day that you're like, how am I in this conversation with this killer? But like, it makes you become who you're becoming.
Yeah. When I got in that accountability group, I remember feeling very uncomfortable. I was the only one that wasn't a millionaire back then. And it was like, all the way upwards of a couple million to like 5 or 6 million. I think my net worth at the time was like 400 grand or something. And I was just like, I felt like the little guy, but it pulled me up. When you get in that environment, you're going to do one of 2 things. You're either going to pull out, and just because it's going to make you too uncomfortable and you're going to be too afraid to level up, or you just level up. It'll just pull you up. Right. And just being around that peer group, it leveled me up, like in everything. Like I never would have done a juice cleanse prior to getting into these guys. Like I didn't even know what a juice cleanse was. Right. Like I wouldn't have run a marathon. That's for sure. I definitely wouldn't be doing real estate at the scale I'm doing now. Like it's crazy.
But I think what made me excited, and you mentioned it earlier, I think what made me excited more was who they were as fathers and who they were as husbands. And
that you can have the whole package. It doesn't just have to be, oh, he's the rich dude that like works 24/7 and he's Mr. Grinch. Like you can have it all. And we interviewed Maddie a couple weeks ago, and the snippet I pulled from it was like, you can have it all. I believe that, period. And if people tell me otherwise, I don't listen to them, because you can have it all.
And I just saw him yesterday at the hotel, because we stayed at his hotel in Tahoe, and we're having lunch with him Friday. And I look at that man, and it's like, he's got 2 young daughters. He's a husband first, but he's got so much going on. Like, it's unbelievable. But he is the definition of like, you can have it all. But here's the truth. And this is, he told me, we met through DMs, like after he spoke at the Toronto event. And he said, look, I got 15 minutes. That's all I got on this day. And I flew across the country to go have coffee with him for 15 minutes. And what I took away from that meeting will forever change my life. He looked me dead in the face 2 minutes into the meeting and goes, "You are no different than I." And that was when I was like, holy shit, like he's just a human just like me, and I can do this too. And that was, I think it was the single most defining moment for the transformation of what, like, and I still got a long way to go, but I think it made me realize that you can have what he has. Like, you're no different. He's human just like you are.
100%. 100%.
And so, you know, Think and Grow Rich, I think, is one of the best books ever. I think Tony Robbins lives his life off those books. When somebody is, let's say they're dipping their toe in the personal development space, I've had a tendency to hand my cousin, he goes like, I want to get into it. And I handed him David Goggins. Bad move. Let's slow the roll into the things. Goggins is an animal. But what do you think overall, if you had to look at, you know, everybody, there's people that don't love morning routines. Like, then don't do it in the morning, do it at night. Like, it doesn't have to be like everybody else. But overall, what do you think it does for you as a father, as a husband, as a business owner? Because like you said, it 5 times your business, the personal development space.
It's shifting your identity. So we all have this self-image of who we are subconsciously. And until you change that, think of it like a thermostat in a room. So like at the time, like my thermostat was, I don't know, call it 120 grand a year. Like that was my thermostat. That's what it was set to. And until I reset that and cranked it up, I would always find I may get close to passing it and then I would cool off. Like I would screw up something or whatever. So the biggest thing is you have to change your self-image. Like Maddie's right. Like, I'm no different than you. You're no different than me. The listeners are no different than either of us. The only thing that's different is how we view ourselves. And that's the only thing that matters. Like, that is literally the only thing that matters. Like, when you can change your self-image to be in alignment with what you actually want, like, I created the Airbnb guy. Like, I'm the Airbnb guy, but I created that. Like, when people used to ask me what you do, I would always just say, oh, I'm a CPA. I never tell people I'm a CPA, ever now. That's not who I am anymore. I'm the Airbnb guy. Like, that's who I am from a professional standpoint, right? So when you have that identity shift, and Rock talks about that, and he wrote a book about it called The Power of Your Identity. When you do that, and you do that through affirmations, visualization, just constant repeated drilling into your subconscious mind, like whatever your goal is, like say you wanted to make $6 grand a month of real estate to be able to quit your job, right? Literally just write it down. I write down the same things every single day in my journal every day. I write out my goals, but I would start with, I am so happy and grateful now that I'm generating $6,000 every single month from my real estate business. And when you write that and you say it out loud and you feel the emotion of it, your mind cannot tell the difference from reality versus what you put in your head. So like they've done studies on it. Olympic athletes, they've had them train. They've had different groups go out and they'd actually like shoot basketball hoops. And then they had another group that would literally just visualize themselves shooting basketball hoops. And the results were friggin' the same. Like your mind is so powerful. So when you visualize, it puts you into the future, into what you actually want to be. And when you do that enough, guess what? You just start acting like that person. Like, and then by osmosis, you get the results because now you're that person. Like for me doing the coaching now, I'm doing webinars, I'm doing podcasts, I'm speaking on stages. I had to visualize that. If you look at my vision board on my backdrop, I went to 10X GrowthCon a couple of years ago and I photoshopped my picture over Grant's on the stage. And I just visualized myself on a stage speaking and helping people and inspiring people over and over and over again. When I trained for the marathon, every time I was running, I was visualizing myself like going through New York City, crossing that finish line. I crossed that finish line thousands of times in my head. And then on game day, I show up and I'm finishing that thing because I've done it 1,000 times before.
Yeah.
So
Jesse Itzler talks about that when he says the race, please. He said the race has already been ran 1,000 times. He's like, it's just the act of doing it. And I love that. We as people, and I even am super guilty of this, we don't say it out loud. Like, dude, if you want it, like fucking say it to yourself in the mirror. Like, and the thing is like we do this all the time. I want this. no, I don't want this. No, you want it. And I'm rereading Expert Secrets right now, and it's an amazing book because everybody on this planet has a gift. Everybody.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if it's selling fruit on the side of the freaking whatever, but you as a person have to tell yourself that that's what's going to happen and never walk away from it. Because look, I said it to somebody last night. We had dinner with a bunch of investors. The last couple months has not been amazing for me in business, personal stuff aside. But I said to him dead in the face, I said, what's the fucking option? Is it for me to give up and go sell perfume at Abercrombie and French? I don't understand. Like, this is my life. Like, regardless if I bring in $1,000 a month or $30,000 a month, this is the path I've chosen. So shut the fuck up, stop complaining, and just do it. And guess what? It's not going to be pretty. It's going to be bloody. It's going to be scary. It's going to suck. There's days, and I'm sure you go through this, where I'm like, why the fuck do I have a podcast? Like, why do people want to listen to this? And then what happens every time? The moment you say that to yourself, I get a text message. Oh, dude, thank you so much. Like, I listen to your stuff every morning. And I'm like, oh, that's all I needed. One person. We're good. And I think people deny who they are on a daily basis. And you have to remove yourself from that.
Yeah, for sure. And there's going to be people that doubt you, whether it's your parents, your family, your friends, whoever. And the best advice I can get you is, again, get yourself in like a supportive accountability group that like believe and encourage and challenge you. Cause like, I still have amazing longtime friends. Like, I love them, but my inner circle now that I spend a lot of my time with, I am ruthless with my time, by the way, like ruthless. Mm-hmm. And I learned that from Maddie. And like, I want to surround myself with people that are going to constantly pull me up, like constantly. Like if I'm the biggest fish, I'm in the wrong pond, right? Like that's just how I operate. And every time I do that, it just continues to pull me up, and it makes me feel more alive. And I just have way more fun, because when you're, I don't know, say you're making 50 grand a year, or you're making 100 grand a year, and a lot of your friends are making 50, like you tend to like want to play down to that. Like when you're hanging around them, like maybe you don't get the fillet when you're out to dinner because like you feel bad or whatever, or like you kind of downplay, or you don't want to get that new car because they're going to be like, oh, look at you, showboat. It's like, I don't really care anymore. Like, I'm going to do what I do, but I want to be around people that like, that's the norm, and you can have it all. And I can hang out and play with my kid. And yes, I'll probably go play cornhole bag toss with him for a couple hours today and like have fun. And I have zero guilt about it. I remember when we bought this house, my wife was like kind of embarrassed to like bring people over because it's a big ass house. And I was like, dude, I don't care. You know how many hours I put in while everybody else is watching TV and I'm working till 2-3 in the morning over the last 6 years? I could give a shit. Like, we earned it.
Yeah. And we as people, what I try to tell my employees and what I try to tell anybody that's around me is, if you can wake up every day and understand that Gary Vee thinks he's playing small, then you need to get your shit together. Because I mean,
there's always the next level, no matter where you are. And that's the beauty of it. Like, it's not about the big house or the money or anything else. It's about you becoming that next version of yourself. Mm-hmm. That's all that it is. And then the next version and the next version. Like, for me, my purpose is to just grow, to evolve into the best and highest person that I can become while I'm on this planet. Like, that's it. And pull everybody else up around me that wants to come along for the ride. I'm not going to force you, but if you want to come along, let's roll. Like, let's do it.
It's the truth. And I would imagine there's moments, and we'll kind of wrap it up around here, that the hotel thing is always interesting, because I worked in that business for so long. I would imagine the realization of that is kind of a holy crap moment a lot of mornings, right? When you're like, and like you're doing the work, right? But you're like, oh wait, it's my hotel. Like, I would imagine, and it's not the end, it's not the beginning, it's the middle, and you're always in the process. But I would imagine that the feeling of that, and you know what? Matthew Thorpe said something to me yesterday. He goes, we as people because I feel good. Like I've lost 50 pounds. Like I feel good about myself. Like it feels good. Like I feel healthy. I feel 27. He says, we as people do not celebrate our goodness enough, and we shy away from talking about how proud we are of ourselves.
Yeah.
And we need to stop doing that. If you're putting in the work, like be proud of it.
Yeah. A lot of people get caught in these conversations of like, it's almost like cool to like have it worse off. Like it's like the poor me thing times 12. But if you go the other direction, it's like, well, I'm one-upping you. It's frowned upon. But it's okay to like continue to beat yourself down into the ground. Don't play that game anymore. I don't even get into those conversations anymore. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I mean, I'll be honest. Every time I hit a big goal, it feels awesome for like 10 minutes. Mm-hmm. Like straight up. Like the day we closed that hotel, I was like, like that was friggin' awesome. And then it was like, all right, what's next? Right? Like seriously. And that's just, I finished the marathon. I felt amazing. And then I was like, all right, Ironman. Like what's next? Like, cause again, I'm just constantly pushing myself. And it's not that I'm not, I'll say this, I'll never be satisfied, but I'm always grateful. Yep. Right? Like when you can balance that, like never be satisfied, but super grateful for where you are, it's always going to push you up and up and up. Yep. And the thing that I always go back to with folks where they're like, well, I'm comfortable where I am. And I'm like, that's fine. But guess what? Like, what do you care about? I was talking to a guy the other day and he's like, oh, I'd love to give some more money to this like Veterans Association. I'm like, that's amazing. I'm like, how much can you give now? He's like, I don't know, like a couple $100 a month. I'm like, cool. Well, if you leveled your game up, maybe you could do 50 grand a month. Like, I know for me, two of my goals in here, I want to give $1 million to Operation Underground Railroad and Boston Children's Hospital every year. Mm-hmm. OUR rescues kids from sex slavery, and Children's Hospital, help my son get better. Mm-hmm. That's in there. Mm-hmm. That drives me. Like find a way to get leverage on yourself where you're helping people and yourself, period.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, it's one of the things like Tony Robbins talks about all the time. Like if you can't give any money when you're broke, then you won't give money when you're a millionaire. And by not giving back, and you can give to whatever you want. You can give to trees. I don't even care. Like save to the trees. It doesn't matter to me, like, which is super important. But you're telling yourself that there's more out there. You're not living in scarcity. You're telling yourself there's abundance by giving. There's so much more universe to it than just the giving part.
100%. 100%.
So how can you have a great course? You have a private Facebook group. You have your own podcast. Just tell the listeners how they can get a hold of all those avenues and how they can learn more.
Yeah, for sure. So I'd love for you guys to check out the new podcast. We released it, I don't know, a couple months ago. It's called STR Secrets, Short-Term Rental Secrets. You can find it on iTunes, Spotify, all those different places, Google Play. We also post the videos on YouTube. You can find me on Facebook and Instagram at the Airbnb guy. I've got a bunch of free resources and a free training at strsecrets.com. I do run an elite mastermind. It's called the STR Secrets Mastermind. You can learn more about that on the website again, but check out the free training at the least. I try to keep it short and sweet. It's like 28 minutes long, breaks down the different systems, like my journey, some different case studies to show you real world numbers on how this whole thing works. And then if you're interested, you can book a call with me. We'll do a one-on-one strategy session, and then I'll tell you about the mastermind. So,
and then what we'll do is then we'll pull back the real curtain on short-term rentals. I'm just kidding. You know?
When you dial it in, man.
Yeah.
When you dial it in, it's a game changer.
The thing is that people understand, and I'll leave them with this: regardless of the economy, regardless of COVID, regardless of whatever, there is real money to be made in real estate investing, bar none. And if that's Airbnbs, if that's multifamilies, if that's mobile home parks. But if you do not fix your mind and you do not fix your limiting beliefs, then those numbers and those systems do not matter. It's as simple as that.
100%. So you come out and call it right out. I have to slide that into my course, and I just smash it into you subconsciously until it just comes in there. But it's 100% true. Because
it's the truth. Because I look at, in Rich Dad Poor Dad changed my life too, but it took me 7 years, 8 years, bad deals to do the thing. And what people don't do enough, right, is when I sold a property in February, it had nothing, don't get me wrong, I'm not mad about the cash we made, but it had nothing to do with selling the properties. It had to do with, I found the deal, I did the remodel with my family, I ran an Airbnb for 2 years, and then we sold it. And it was the, holy crap, this works, let's go. And that the confidence from that is so much greater than any dollar amount. And that's what Mike's talking about. He didn't get his second deal until 9 months after proving out that he could do it in the first place. There are people out there, I've talked to them, 50, 60, a million of them, that get their first deal and they're like, oh, I want the second one, like 2 days later. And I'm like, how about you prove out that you can do the first one in the first place, and then we'll worry about the next one. Because if you're building your life on legacy, and you're building your life and your why's bigger than a dollar amount, where are you trying to get to? There's no rush. There's no rush. There's no rush. Long life. You meet these 24-year-old investors, and I'm like, guys, you have 65 years. Like, where are you trying to go? So, but dude, I just want to tell you that I appreciate all the value that you bring, and I appreciate watching your story. I will be in the Big B probably in late October, so I can't wait to stay at the hotel. I'm going to give it the worst review that's ever got. No, I'm just kidding. I said the same thing to Matt Thrupp. He's like, no, you're not staying in my place. No, I'm really looking forward to it, man. I just stayed at Matt's. I love it. It's cool to see the transformation. I know I saw yours beforehand, so I just want to tell you that I love it, man. Keep it going, and thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thank you. By the way, I didn't even mention the website for the hotel. If folks want to check that out. It's Cove at Rockport. So Cove spelled out coveatrockport.com. And
thank goodness that your wife picks out all the design, because she's really good at it.
Yeah, you don't want me designing anything. She's lights out.
Yeah.
If anybody knows somebody on HGTV, man, we need to get her on HGTV.
Yes, for sure. And I think what I love the most is the bright colors. I think it really makes it stand out. I saw those yellow it was awesome. I love that. And the view doesn't suck either. So
yeah.
Well, I appreciate it, my man.
Yeah, likewise. Thanks, buddy.
Got it, my man. See ya.
Thank you for listening to Construct Your Life with Austin Linney. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to rate, review, subscribe, and pay it forward by sharing with a friend. Most importantly, take this opportunity to start constructing your life by taking immediate action on what you learned. For show notes, resources, and more information on one-on-one coaching with Austin, visit constructyourlifepodcast.com.